Hello, I'm Edward October. Over the years, I've narrated more ghost stories, horror shows, and creepypastas than I can count. And yet, the crimes discussed on our true crime podcast managed to scare the shit out of me. This program is not suitable for children or the faint of heart. If you are such a person, go ahead and switch off this podcast. Listen to something else. Are you still with us? Well, we've warned you.
Hey, Jen.
Cam, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty darn spectacular, if you will.
Awesome.
And yourself?
I'm doing well. Yes, we're booking up our remaining seats for our Dark History Tour of the UK. More information, you can see the show notes. You're going to want to book as soon as possible if you want to go. So it's the last time we're opening it up. So get your seats, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, it's going to be so fun. Okay. I hear you have a case for us.
I do. It's another requested episode. This time it's from Stacy, and she requested it on Instagram.
Ooh, Stacy. Okay.
So, yes. For some reason, my Instagram's not doing really well. People will DM us, and then I won't find out for 2 days. It's I don't get an instant thing.
I do that. Okay, first of all, I'm terrible on social media. And secondly, I stumble across, wants to send you a message. And then I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, thank you, Stacy, for this little case. And here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
In a northern suburb of Chicago, two women had been in a monogamous relationship for over 7 years. It was March of 2007, and 32-year-old Rebecca Lynn Klein, or Becky, had made a comfortable life for herself. Becky was a natural-born caregiver. She attended Streamwood High School and then graduated from Illinois University with a BA in recreational therapy. She grew up on the north side in an upper-middle-class family with one older sister, Melanie. Becky Klein was one of those genuinely good people who wanted nothing more than to relieve other people's suffering. And she had been a big part in opening a daycare program for adults with disabilities. Becky, unlike some members of the LGBTQ community, she enjoyed a very supportive environment. Her parents accepted her sexuality, and when Becky met a woman named Nicole Abusharif, they accepted her as well. Nicole was 6 years younger than Becky, and her upbringing was a bit different than Klein's. Nicole's mother was absent for most of her childhood, and her family was lower on the socioeconomic scale. Nicole had always been a tomboy through and through. By the time she met Becky, Nicole's friends were almost all exclusively male. Becky was Nicole's first serious girlfriend. Nicole's family accepted Becky as a member of their family, too, and for all intents and purposes, the couple had an idyllic situation and relationship. This made it all more confusing to Becky Klein's family to discover that Nicole Abusharif was a chameleon, and that the daughter-in-law they treated with respect viewed their precious daughter Becky as nothing more as a means to an end. On the night of March 15th, 2007, Becky and her sister Melanie were preparing for a birthday party. One of their younger family members was having a birthday that upcoming weekend, and the two sisters decided to wrap presents and make other preparations for the party together. However, they couldn't work too late into the night because it was Thursday, and Melanie and Becky both had to work the next day. They stopped around 6:15 to eat some dinner, and Nicole, who had recently been fired from her job selling security cameras, laid on the couch the whole evening complaining of a backache. When Melanie left that evening, she fully expected the upcoming birthday party to be a success. So she said goodbye to her sister Becky at around 7:20 p.m. Later, remembering that she forgot to tell Becky something, Melanie called her sister at 8 p.m., but there was no answer. Becky told Nicole that she needed some duct tape to pack up some boxes of Christmas ornaments, and Nicole went out and bought it for her at about 7:34 p.m. Nicole said after she got home, the two watched TV until about 10:30, and then the next morning, Becky left for work like normal, kissing Nicole goodbye as she went out the door. However, Rebecca's employer called Nicole at around 11:30 a.m. to say that Becky never showed up for work. Nicole told him that as far as she knew, Becky had gone to work on time, like usual. So Nicole drove to Becky's place of employment to search for her, only to find Becky's car was not in the parking lot. Becky's mother had called Nicole because her daughter had failed to talk to her sister Melanie that morning. Apparently, the two talked to each other every morning on their way to work. Nicole told her that she would drive around the neighborhood to try to find Becky's vehicle. And sure enough, Nicole found Becky's car. A white work van parked on the side of the road near their home. The van was unlocked, and the keys were in the ignition. Nicole Abusharif then called the police to report her wife missing. In a newspaper article dated Sunday, March 18th, Becky's father, Jeff, said that Becky's work bag and some work-related items were also in the van. The article went on to state that when Becky left for work, she had been wearing a gray fleece jacket over a blue and grayed Old Navy sweatshirt. Becky's father also said that Becky had no history of mental or physical illness, and that as far as he knew, she had not been struggling with any personal strife. The family was understandably terrified and hoped that Becky would be found alive and well soon. Friends and family immediately set up a blog for Becky Klein and also distributed flyers all around the Villa Park area. But what nobody knew when that March 18th story ran in the paper was that Becky wasn't a missing person any longer. Her body had actually been found on Saturday, March 17th. Police deliberately let the public think that Becky was still missing. Authorities would later come under scrutiny for the information blackout, but State's Attorney Joseph Burkett defended that decision by saying, quote, "The curiosity of media is not of paramount importance when you're trying to solve a murder." He quoted a state Supreme Court professional code of conduct to back him up, saying, quote, "Prosecutors are prohibited specifically from releasing information that would pose a serious imminent threat to the fairness of a trial." Still, many think Burkett took it too far in this case, and that people had a right to know what was going on in their community. The fact that Becky's body had been discovered would not have hindered the fairness of any future trial, and the public had worried about their own safety during that time when there was no reason to. And while investigators had gone over the house that Becky shared with Nicole with a fine-tooth comb and found nothing, they had neglected to look in the couple's detached garage. And when they finally did search the garage, they found Nicole's baby, her 1966 Ford Mustang. Nicole rarely drove the Mustang because it was a collector's item, but the police noticed that the car had been covered with a fine layer of dust, except for an area on the trunk that had recently been disturbed. Immediately, the police wanted to check the trunk, but it was locked. And when the police asked Nicole for the key to the trunk, she told them that she had accidentally broken the key in the lock several months ago, and she had a new lock installed, but she never had any keys made for it. Undeterred, the police gained access to the trunk by removing the back seat. There, in the back of the trunk, they found Becky with her hands and her feet bound by duct tape, gagged with a bandana, blindfolded, and then suffocated by a plastic bag that had been put over her head and secured with duct tape. There was no sign of a struggle. She hadn't been beaten or sexually assaulted. It was as if she got into the trunk willingly, or more likely, under the threat of violence. Becky died a horribly slow death, alone, unable to move, suffocating in the dark, knowing the whole time that she was going to die, and that the woman she loved had killed her. DuPage County State's Attorney Joseph Burkett said that afterwards, police found 2 keys in the truck. One was in the bedroom, and the other on Nicole's key ring on a table. Neighbors and acquaintances of the couple said that they had never seen Becky and Nicole fight, and that they knew of no strife between the two of them other than Becky wanting to have children and Nicole not. Becky had told her sister Melanie in March 2002 that she wanted to break up with Nicole, but when Becky discussed the issue with Nicole, Nicole had threatened to drink herself to death. So Becky, being the caregiver and fixer, decided to stay with Nicole. That had been 5 years ago, and Melanie thought the couple had worked things out since her sister never mentioned it to her again. The police also said that they had never been called to the home for any domestic disturbances, and in fact, neither Becky nor Nicole had any criminal record of violence. A friend of the couple said, quote, "They're both nice girls," and that the neighborhood was in complete shock. During their initial investigation, Nicole showed no obvious concern for Becky's well-being or whereabouts and had initially denied the police access to search the house, but eventually gave in. When they checked Becky's cell phone, which had been found on a ledge in the basement by her sister Melanie, the phone records showed that not one single phone call came from her devoted partner, Nicole. Now, how was it that Becky's employer called Nicole to inquire about Becky's whereabouts, and Nicole never once called Becky to see where she was? Instead, she drove to Becky's work parking lot to look for her car. However, when they checked Nicole's phone, they found calls made to another woman, a 19-year-old named Rose Sodaro. Nicole met Rose on the social networking site MySpace, and the two bonded over their love of vintage cars. However, at first, Rose told the police that she didn't know Nicole and she had no personal relationship with her, and she didn't have a MySpace account. But she eventually told the truth. Apparently, Rose had been dating Nicole Abusharif intermittently for a year. At one point, she stopped seeing Nicole because her mother didn't approve of her. Rose claimed that she didn't know that Becky was Nicole's life partner, and she just thought Becky was a roommate. On the night that Becky was murdered and stuffed into a trunk, Nicole and Rose went out on a date. The couple went to a bowling alley about 35 minutes south of Villa Park in Tinley Park. Afterwards, they had some drinks and then went back to the home that Abusharif shared with Becky Klein, and they had sex. They had sex while Becky's body was in the trunk of the car in the garage. The next morning, Nicole offered Rose the 1966 Ford Mustang as a gift. Rose went on to tell investigators that Nicole had told her that she, Nicole, and her brother, who had recently died of Wilson's disease, had both been New York City firefighters at Ground Zero on 9/11. Nicole confided that she had been wounded in the line of duty and had lost several friends that day. She also told Rose that she was a Villa Park firefighter and that she had been accepted into the elite corps of the rescue squad for Villa Park. None of that was true. Nicole didn't even have a brother. That's stolen valor. I can't, the gall to admit that you were a firefighter at 9/11 is unfathomable.
I'm telling you, since this podcast, I've learned so much about the lowness on people. I don't even know.
Nicole went on to tell Rose that she had liver cancer and she had been successfully cured by a liver transplant, but she wasn't out of the woods yet due to her severe alcoholism. She told Rose that her drinking began after 9/11 and that since then she couldn't stop drinking. It would probably lead to her body rejecting the liver transplant, resulting in her death. At one point, she even took Rose to a funeral home where she selected a casket that she wanted to be buried in and gave Rose instructions to follow on the event of her death. She said she wanted to make sure that she had the firefighting logo inscribed on the coffin. None of these stories about her battle with liver cancer was true either, except for the part that Nicole was an alcoholic. All of it was lies. Rose's version of the events on that night of the murder went like this. They met at a restaurant at about 9:20 p.m. They left Nicole's car in the parking lot and drove to the bowling alley together in Rose's car. They arrived shortly before 10 p.m., where Nicole drank shots and had several beers at the bowling alley bar. Because Nicole was intoxicated, Rose drove her home and arrived around 3 a.m. She parked the car in the driveway next to the front door and noticed a white van parked further up in the driveway near the garage, but she didn't know who that belonged to. According to Rose, no one was home, not even the roommate Becky. Nicole gave Rose some clothing to sleep in, and Rose noticed that there was a gun in an open case lying on the bed. Rose asked why it was there, and Nicole told her not to worry about it, and she put the gun in the bedside table drawer. Rose went on to tell investigators that in the past she had spent the night with Nicole about 7 or 8 times, but Becky had never been home at any of those occasions. She also went on to tell police that at the beginning of the year she had begun to have doubts about some of the stories Nicole was telling her, and she had concluded that Nicole had never had a liver transplant. Possibly because she didn't have a scar. Liver transplants usually have a pretty big scar.
Yeah.
They leave a scar. I think it's an L shape to the No, what? Anyway. I looked it up and it's a huge scar. I mean, there's even some that look like a lower Y, like the Y cut of an autopsy, but it's lower. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're brutal scars. Brutal, but she's 19, right? The next morning, the couple woke up between 7 and 8 a.m., but Rose fell back asleep shortly thereafter. When she finally woke up sometime later, Rose and Nicole watched some television for about 20 minutes, but then she said Nicole started to get phone calls and they seemed to distress her. Around noon, Rose drove Nicole back to the restaurant where her car was parked. And before they left, Nicole told Rose that, based on the phone calls she'd just received, her roommate, Becky, missing. Rose and Nicole were supposed to meet up later that afternoon, but Nicole was unable to make it. Later, Nicole called Rose and told her that if the police pulled her over, she should deny knowing her and deny having a MySpace account. She was also to say that she'd been out drinking with some friends on the 15th and that she'd left her car parked at Nicole's house because she'd been unable to drive. Although why Rose would need to park her car at Nicole's house if she supposedly didn't even know her, made no sense. All of this, Nicole said, was to protect Rose. Under Illinois law, Nicole Abusharif was charged with first-degree murder and concealment of a homicide. Nicole, of course, stated that she was innocent. On March 22nd, the police finally released the information that Becky's body had been found and that an arrest had been made. And while Nicole might not have had a criminal record for violence, authorities state that she had a history of insurance fraud. Nicole had managed to amass a nice little nest egg from the payouts of 8 successful workman's comp and automobile insurance claims. In fact, Nicole was the sole beneficiary of the life insurance policy of her lifetime partner, Rebecca Klein, totaling $400,000. Shocker, right? To investigators, that was motive enough for Nicole to have killed Becky. And any Dateline 2020 watcher will tell you that's perfect. Right. During the investigation into Becky's death, police discovered that one of Nicole's former co-workers at the Des Plaines security company, Robert L. Edwards, was at the home of Nicole and Becky on the night of the murder. When he was questioned, Robert lied about his whereabouts and said that he and Nicole were nothing more than acquaintances. But when investigators checked his phone and computer records, they were able to determine that he had actually been at the residence of the victim for a short while, and there had been more than 50 phone calls made to each other the night of the murder. He was arrested, and police have a videotape of him admitting that he and Nicole were drug buddies and that they would discuss their sexual fantasies with each other. However, Robert's wife claimed that, quote, everything Robert had said had been twisted by the police. He was subsequently convicted of obstruction of justice in the murder investigation and sentenced to 75 days at the DuPage County work camp. That was just the beginning of legal issues for Robert Edwards, because while the police were searching his computer, guess what they found?
Gee, I don't know.
They found over 100 images of CSAM, or child sexual assault materials. In 2008, he was arrested on charges stemming from those sexually explicit images. No charges were ever brought against him in relationship to the murder of Rebecca Klein, not even accessory after the fact. When the trial began, the prosecution laid out their case. Nicole's DNA was found on the bandanas used to gag Becky and the one to blindfold her. 25 fingerprints and palm prints belonging to Nicole were found in the garbage bag that was used to suffocate Becky, and her prints were found on the dust on the trunk of the Mustang. More DNA belonging to Nicole was found on the duct tape used to bind Becky's feet and hands and fasten the garbage bag over her head. There were only 2 keys to the trunk of the Mustang, and both were found in Nicole's possession, although she had tried to give a set of those to Rose, because she gifted Rose her car. That's what a way to get rid of the body, right? Give them to your girlfriend.
It happens all the time, but also nobody's going to figure that out after a while.
Nicole claimed that she and Becky had an understanding that they were allowed extramarital sex as long as it didn't affect their relationship. When asked about her feelings for Becky, Nicole said, quote, "I can't remember a time I didn't love her." You don't kill people you love. In case people out there don't know that, it's
technically you shouldn't kill anyone,
right?
But especially those you love.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a rule about thou shalt not kill. I don't know. Anyway,
something. I don't know.
The defense went on to say things like gay relationships were different from straight ones and that, quote, "infidelity is generally accepted as the normal," to explain Nicole's behavior and the existence of Rose Sodaro. However, the prosecution quickly pointed out that no matter what the defense said, quote, Becky was under the impression that her relationship was monogamous and that Becky had never engaged in the same, quote, third-party behavior. When Rose Sodaro testified, she further supported the prosecution's conclusion by stating that she had been led to believe that Becky was nothing more than Nicole's roommate. The only point the defense made was that due to Nicole's bad back, there was no way she would be able to overpower Becky since she was taller and heavier than Nicole, nor would she be able to lift Becky's body into the trunk. The prosecution said that, more than likely, what happened was that Becky had been threatened at gunpoint to get into the trunk on her own, where Nicole then put a plastic bag over her head, wrapped it with duct tape, and locked her in the trunk. The defense argued that the fingerprints and palm prints on the tape and plastic bag were there because Nicole had helped Becky package up the Christmas ornaments and that Nicole's DNA was found on the bandanas because they belonged to her. They also claimed that Nicole and Becky had a minor spat that evening and that Becky decided to leave the house, maybe to go to her sister, and an unknown assailant murdered Becky while Nicole was out on her date with Rose. The plausibility of a murderer killing Becky and then bringing the body back to Becky's own home and then putting her in the trunk of a locked car that only Nicole had the keys to seems a bit preposterous. And luckily, the jury thought so too. During the trial, Nicole remained stoic and quiet, but broke down in tears when the jury adjourned to deliberate. In May of 2009, after 11 hours of deliberation, the jury found Nicole Abusharif guilty of murdering her partner, Rebecca Lynn Klein. And 2 months later in July, she was sentenced to 50 years in prison. It's a good place for her.
Yep. The only place, really.
The only point the defense team won was the fact that they convinced the jury that Becky's murder had not been premeditated. The judge didn't sentence Nicole to the full 60 years that he could have because Nicole had not had a history of violence before this. Even so, she's not eligible for parole until the full 50 years has been served. During the trial, the prosecution admitted that Abusharif could have had help with Becky's murder or with the disposal of her body, but that didn't negate her own guilt. Becky Klein had a profound effect on everybody she met. Assistant District Attorney Joe Ruggiero said that, quote, Becky was a flower in God's garden on earth, and that Nicole was the bottom of the barrel. Her sister Melanie said that the family couldn't understand how they had been taken in by Nicole. Quote, she duped and misled all of us. She went on to say that sometimes they were overwhelmed by their loss. She and her parents just stare at the seat Becky used to occupy. In fact, both families were completely overwhelmed and broken. Nicole's parents accepted the verdict, but were traumatized by the whole ordeal. How could they live with the fact that their daughter was a convicted killer? Nicole's father even stated that Becky had been like a daughter to him. How devastating to have to mourn the loss of Becky and then mourn the fact that his own daughter killed her, and that because of those actions, he'll now lose her as well. One investigator stated that it was as if Nicole planned how to kill Becky without giving any thought as to how to avoid getting caught. She didn't bother to wear gloves or remove any of her fingerprints or DNA from the murder weapons. She hid Becky's body in the trunk of her car without any thought as to what to do with it once it was in there. I mean, she had to have known that once Becky was reported missing, the police and Becky's friends and family would be at her house or watching her house at all times. It's like Murder 101, right? What do you do afterwards? Did she underestimate Becky's value so much that she thought nobody would be worried about her? I mean, leaving Nicole more than enough time to dispose of her body? And she had to have known that eventually the body would start to decompose and smell. The time to dispose of the body would have been right after she had killed her, but instead of driving to a river and dumping the body, she went out on a date, and she got drunk. The fact that Becky's sister Melanie left the house at 7:20, Nicole bought the duct tape at 7:34, and then met Rose for her date at 9:20 meant that Nicole was able to take the life of a woman she supposedly loved, clean up, and meet Rose in all less than 2 hours. That's cold.
Yeah. Well, hello. Killer, you know?
And what about Rose? I mean, some investigators believe that the reason Nicole murdered Becky was not only to get the life insurance payout, but also to free the way for her to be with Rose. But again, Nicole didn't seem to plan anything further than the initial murder. Any halfway intelligent person would have had to understand that after murdering Becky, Nicole would not be able to keep the truth from Rose. Even if Nicole got away with murder, Rose would learn that Becky was not just a roommate, that she was indeed Nicole's life partner. And Rose would learn that Nicole had not been at Ground Zero. In fact, she'd never been a firefighter at all. And she had no dead brother, and she didn't have cancer or a liver transplant. I mean, did she really think that Rose would stick around after learning that everything had been a lie? I mean, what was her end game? Seriously.
The psychology of all of this is what fascinates me the most, you know?
Mm-hmm. Nicole Abusharif was originally sent to Dwight Correctional Center, but she's now living out her remaining days at Logan Correctional Center. Maybe she tried to tell herself that Becky somehow deserved to die or that nobody would miss her. Maybe the biggest lies she told were the ones she told herself. I mean, not that it matters, because Becky's gone now, unable to help people anymore. Her family and friends and those who benefited from her charity and goodness are left dealing with the void caused by her absence. But I don't understand.
I don't know, Jen. That's what I said. Like, the psychology of all this, I don't understand how come people can flip, snap, change. You know what I mean? You think you really know somebody.
Like, they were together for years. You know, did she snap? Did she suddenly, what caused it? She couldn't get out of the house to go see Rose? I mean, we won't know.
No, we won't know. And a lot of times the person responsible never really fesses up either.
As far as I know, she hasn't. But I know there's a couple episodes. She's on an episode of Deadly Wives, and she was on an episode of Snapped. But yeah, I mean, it just don't understand. I mean, the life insurance policy, was it a quick decision to do that? Was she planning it for a long time? But how cruel to let her suffocate.
I'm speechless. I don't even know what to say. Especially with somebody that you spent so much time with and that you truly loved, or you thought you loved and truly loved you.
Right.
Like, when you're in a relationship with somebody, I mean, ideally, you trust each other implicitly.
And talk about betrayal.
That was my next line.
Yeah.
The one closest to you is the one that's going to do you in. That's terrible.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it takes a while to suffocate, just like it takes a while to be strangled. I mean, it's not quick, and it's painful. And she was alone, panicked in the car. I can't even begin to imagine. Poor Becky.
No, it's terrible.
And her family. Oh, to accept somebody into your family, into the fold, as it were, and then they turn on you that much. Take your most prized possession away from you.
I don't know.
Unreal.
Like I said, who knows these days? I swear to God.
Well, anyway, thanks, Stacy. I never would have, this wasn't even on my radar. This case. And it was just Chicago. It's just 4 hours away from us.
Well, thank you, Stacy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Anyway, I'm kind of depressed now. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, we have been doing this all day today, and we've had some super duper cases.
We've got out the whole entire month of July today. Woohoo!
Woo! Woo!
Anyway.
And also, that means our little vacation to Scotland to see our beloved editor, music producer, and multi-talented person, Nico. We will be leaving, let's see, in what, about 5 weeks? Something like that? When this episode airs?
September the 10th, I believe. No, we are getting back on the 10th. We are leaving the 3rd and coming back on and getting there on the 4th. But we're going to go see Nico and his lovely partner, Jesse, get married. We're going to celebrate their wedding with them. Very excited.
In Scotland. That's so much better than stateside, right?
I know. Exactly. And then the year after, like I said earlier, we're going to the UK with a bunch of our listeners.
Yes, we are. Whoop, whoop.
So very excited about that. If you guys haven't noticed, because we've told you every episode how excited we are.
Wow.
But do you have anything else to say?
It's still raining, which is funny because, this will be starting from the first episode we recorded today. It was raining and it's still raining. But see, if you listen to that, it seems like it's been raining for 3 weeks straight, but it hasn't because these were all recorded in one day. I just thought that was funny. I'm running out of stuff to watch on the old TV, which makes me sad. But, maybe that means I should get up and do something else is what I should do. Right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Probably. I need to clean my house. My house is horrible. I mean, I used to pride myself saying, well, it's not so bad. You won't get cholera, right? But now I'm kind of wondering, you might get cholera. It's time to clean.
I know. I just hate cleaning. It's just not worth it.
It's like doing laundry. It never ends, right?
It's just not worth it.
But yeah, I'll probably do that. I've got some stuff got some errands after this that I will be running. Not that anybody really cares what we're blabbering about now.
I know.
Quite honest.
It's fine. It's fine. It's, yeah.
I've just got those life duties, not wife duties, but life duties to handle this afternoon. So
I don't like life duties at all.
Either. No,
I need a personal assistant to do all that. And, it's funny because I'm poor and I'm a teacher who has the entire summer off and I still don't want to do anything. Whatever. Anyway, I guess we will close it out and we will see the good people next week. Same time. Yeah. And until then, remember, lock your doors.
Keep passing by those open windows.
Bye-bye.
Love ya. For more information about this episode, as well as all other sources, please check out our show notes or the podcast website at ourtruecrimepodcast.com. Our True Crime Podcast is developed and created by the hosts, Jen and Cam. Original music and audio mix of all our True Crime Podcast episodes is courtesy of Nico Vertesi from We Talk of Dreams. You can reach Nico at wetalkofdreams.com. Listener discretion is provided by Edward October from OctoberPod VHS. You can find all of his great works on YouTube. Please make sure to like and subscribe to our True Crime Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. We can be reached on Instagram and Facebook at Our True Crime Podcast or on Twitter with the handle at Our True Crime Pod. You can also email us at ourtruecrimepodcast@gmail.com. We would also at this time like to thank our patrons. We would be so lost without you. Thank you so much. And if you would like to help support the show, you can check us out on patreon.com/Our True Crime Podcast. You can also show your support by leaving a 5-star review on Apple or simply just tell your friends about us. It's that easy. Love ya.